Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the January 15th, 2020 board meeting to order and remind everyone to please use your microphones when you're speaking and turn them off when you're finished. Thank you. Commissioners present with us tonight, Commissioner Doan, Commissioner Duggan, myself, Commissioner Bagnall, Commissioner Schmidt, and Commissioner Sanders. First item of business is reports by the Chief Executive Officer and management staff.
Thank you. So a couple things occurred here in the last week. First one I'd like to talk about is there was Portland cryptosporidium results. Portland Water Bureau reported that the 50-liter sample daily between Sunday, January 5th and Wednesday, January 8th, one cryptosporidium oocyst was detected in the sample collected on January 6th. Cryptosporidium was not detected in the samples collected on January 5th, January 7th, or January 8th. Prior to these detections, cryptosporidium was last detected from the Bull Run watershed intake on December 16th, 2019. The state has determined that the public does not need to take additional protections at this time. Portland Water Bureau will continue increased sampling 4 times per week until we have at least 3 weeks without any detections. Additional information can be found at www.portlandoregon.gov/water/crypto-results. Second thing is I'd like to report on is the Water Management and Conservation Plan was submitted this week. It's a 5-year update to the conservation plan. It's a progress report. And it was submitted to the Oregon Water Resources Department. This report outlines progress made since 2015 on specific water conservation and supply measures TVWD is required to perform, such as annual water loss audits, conservation-based billing, example, use of block rate structure, and public outreach and communications methods. The next full report will be due in another 5 years, at which time TVWD will complete a comprehensive assessment of its conservation and water supply measures, including a water rights review, along with any required actions TVWD must maintain or implement to continue using these rights. And I'd just like to commend the staff on that, the work on that. I read through the report today thoroughly and well done. I thought it was really well done. So the third thing I'd like to talk about is notable CIP project update. We got bids for the Metzger North-South Fire Flow Improvement Project were received earlier today. When this project is complete, approximately 10,000 feet of water line will help improve fire flow in the 498 pressure zone in Metzger, connecting the Taylor's Ferry Reservoir site to the southern portion of the Metzger area. The project is anticipated to be complete by June 30th, 2020. And if you have any questions on that, Carrie Pack is here. And she's also going to be doing the safety minute and department reports. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to her.
Good evening. Carrie Pack, Chief Engineer. I just wanted to append CEO Hickman's. I was trying to refer to him as Tom or Mr. Hickman. Tom's report on our notable project. We were actually intending to open bids today. It came to our attention late yesterday, actually, after the CEO report was printed. There was a minor issue with one of the valves that we have spec'd in the system, and it had a lead time of 6 months to get. So we're doing a little bit of adjustment, and actually the bid opening has been delayed for a week, and it'll be next Tuesday, I believe, January 22nd, when we'll open that bid. But the final project schedule hasn't changed, and we intend to continue on forth with the project, and benefits will continue to be seen at the end of the next year. So, okay. Unless you have a question on that, I will go through my safety moment. I have a cold right now, so I can't really say goodbye to cold just yet, but I thought it was a good presentation because it is that time of the year when there's cold and flu going around, and people are suffering. So some tips. It's the season. You got sneezing, coughing, runny noses, sore throat. I was looking through the website, and it's kind of funny. All of the pictures were, bad stuff were done by women. But this is the only bad coughing example that I could find that was done by a male. So, both male and females are all represented in those pictures of things that bother us. So what can you do? I actually lost the website, so couldn't give you the website name, but some of the things that you can do to avoid getting sick is probably the best thing. And eating lots of fresh fruit. They taste good, strengthen your immune system. Vitamin B provides vitamin B and energy boosts, especially fruit like bananas and blueberries. Sometimes substitute tea or substitute coffee with tea with honey for coffee. I can't do that. I love coffee. I don't care how sick I get. I still have to drink coffee. And if I don't drink coffee, you probably don't want to be around me. So something else that they offer is to get some fresh air. No, not the NPR fresh air, but the fresh air that you get from outside. Take a break, walk around the block. It's kind of cold and chilly out there, but actually the fresh air keeps your head clear, and they recommend that you do that at least once in the afternoon, just to get your system going again. What else can you do? Practice good hygiene. Wash your hands with warm water and soap. And my grandma told me that if you wash your hands, sing happy birthday internally. That's how long you should wash your hands, about 2 minutes. So don't be too quick with washing your hands, and use warm water. If you have to sneeze into your elbow, and if you don't have a tissue, use the tissue, but if you don't have a tissue, sneeze into your elbow. What else can you do? Stay home. If you're sick, nobody benefits by having you here suffering, being a martyr, and unintentionally making others sick too. Stay home, recover.
So you're not
properly.
modeling that right now.
I'm actually almost over it, so I'm almost over it. I'm drinking coffee, so stay home. What else can you do? Eat fresh fruit, fresh, healthy food. Warm cup of chicken noodle soup. There's been study that chicken noodle soup actually does help with your cold and speeds up your recovery. So to a happy, healthy, happy New Year, takeaway points are: eat more fresh fruit, fresh and healthy food, take regular walks outside, take sick days when needed, and wash your hands often and thoroughly. With that, should I just roll right into the department report?
Well, I'd like to do an amendment to your happy birthday song. We tell the kids at camp to sing the song through twice. So that must be a youth thing.
They sing it really fast.
And adults only have to do it once. But I still do it twice, but that's because I'm a kid at heart. But it's a commonality.
Okay, so department report this evening is brought to you by Engineering and Operations. I think I've shared this slide before with the board. I've changed the numbers to reflect the current size of our department. I think by number, we're the largest department in the district. We have, starting from the right, left, water quality sampling, backflow testing, backup generators, power generators, emergency pump stations. We do GPS collections. We do everything. If you have a need, we call us, and except for the things that those folks do over here, we do vast majority of work around the district. So rather than giving you names and titles, I thought I would share some our organizational structure in a functional basis. So in engineering, we're responsible for systems planning, including demand forecasting and management, supply and distribution. We do capital projects, development services, and work with the risk management to develop resiliency plan for the district. I'm going to skip over asset management for a second and move over to water operations and maintenance. And this is really heart of our district, where we have our distribution staff and valve crew managing the systems and operating them on a day-to-day basis. Construction and maintenance are conducted on a regular basis to replace mains replacement, address the leaks that notices that you get in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. They don't care if there's a leak, they will be there. And supply systems, operations, and management, maintenance are also under this group, working with water supply program at the WWSS. And then the other area that our department is responsible for is water resources, where they're responsible for regulatory compliance, taking thousands, literally thousands of water sampling data on an annual basis, providing backflow prevention program, selling bulk water permits that you're going to hear, you heard about last week or last work session, but we'll hear about some more. And also we're embarking on developing a source water protection program along with Dave's crew at the Willamette Water Supply Program. So I skipped over waste asset management program, who's responsible for all of those things that you see there, because I wanted to feature that group today. So it's kind of overwhelming to talk about all of our group in one department meeting. So I wanted to talk about the asset management division, which is made up of 8 people. And one of those folks is represented back there behind in the back scene, in the background. Colin is our facilities supervisor, and he works with 2 other folks to manage some, and I'll get to what he's responsible for in a minute. I said there were 8 people, that you only see 7 because one of us is missing. And I meant to Photoshop Mark into that picture, but I couldn't find a picture of Mark to put in. So asset management has a annual budget of about $2.3 million. They're responsible for geographic information system, computerized maintenance management system, facilities, and fleet. Within the GIS and CMMS, they provide assessment for and analyzing and documenting assets. So, and I don't know why somebody put this picture. This is actually me hiding under the earthquake, during the earthquake drill. They make sure that everybody was following the standards, and I guess that represented the GIS and CMMS program. They provide customer support. All the maps that you see comes out of this group. There are 2 people in this group, GIS technician and analyst. We provide emergency mapping responses, and I think we've talked about this, where we have these Tupperware full of bins of maps, hard maps that we have stored out in Metzger. And the reason for that is because while everything is digital and everything has been included in the mapping system, if for whatever reason the electricity goes down or communication goes down, we still need maps to be able to answer the emergencies. So we have printed out quarter section maps and the intersection maps of all of our assets throughout the district. And the bins are taller than me when you stack them up. And that is available in a location where it's flood-proof and where we can get to should the needs arise. So that gets done by this group. And system inventory, obviously, we have miles of new pipes assets that are coming in as donated asset through the Development Services Program. And this group is responsible for inputting all of that data into the GIS system so that they can talk to customer services, so that they can bill information, and so that they can talk to the operations and construction management program to be able to address whatever leaks and other things that needs to get done. And locating actually works really, really closely with this group also to make sure that we're locating all of the assets when the 811 call comes through. And we have been using GPS, which is a global positioning system unit to actually locate get the X and Y coordinates, and so that they're more accurate than what you might see on just the as-built maps that we get from construction bases. So asset management, I said I was going to talk about Colin here in a little bit. So this is a group that the facilities group is managed by 3 people, so Colin and 2 other full-time employees. And because this work that they do is so much dependent on the season, during summertime, we have up to 5 seasonal employees that get hired to help Colin and his staff to work on maintaining all of the infrastructure that we have. We maintain non-water specific, system-specific components, over 30 sites, buildings and HVAC and fire systems, fences, landscaping, workspace configuration, etc. So if there's a light bulb out, we go out there and change the light bulb. As you can imagine, trying to keep up with all of these different assets from a facilities maintenance perspective throughout the whole district is a armful of workload. We have approximately 55 acres of ground to manage. And in order for us to help with that, we've actually contracted out some of those services, like the custodial services in this building is contracted out, and our staff actually don't do that except for during the working hours if there are emergency things that Colin and his staff address those issues. We also manage utilities not specifically related to moving water, provide support for landscape restoration after the construction and maintenance activities. So I think we mentioned that we did a Inglewood and Thompson reservoirs were rehabbed last year. As part of that project, we had to do landscaping for all of the Inglewood site. And if you've been to Inglewood property, you know how big that site is and how wooded it is. Well, it's Colin's group that manages all of that as part of the project. They have budget of about $1.4 million. The challenges that we have are that the system keeps growing. We keep adding new facilities, new reservoirs, and urbanization makes the facilities more visible. So in turn, we have to keep better care of it. So it's no longer, build it and put it behind a fence and walk away from it. When we want to be a good neighbor to our customers and our neighbors. So the perennially spring growing season hammers the staff. They are out there mowing and trying to keep up with the weed and other landscaping needs. And then second blast of workload comes when all of the vegetation, deciduous trees fall their leaves, and somebody has to pick that up. And that's what our folks do. This crew is armed with 2 pickups, 1 ton flatbed, and a bunch of lawnmowers and a whole bunch more of weed whackers. They do really good work. Another program within the asset management division is the fleets program. District has a mixed fleet of about 128 units. And I say about because we have some always going in and out. We are we talked about the Fireflies with the board a while back, and those got switched out, and other things are coming in. All of this, about half a dozen vehicles come in and out on a typical year. Our goal is to provide maintenance for entire fleet with least practical downtime. This is especially challenging when you consider all of the different types of fleet that we maintain. It's not like you go to Car Subaru and all they maintain is passenger vehicles. We have passenger vehicles that are used by our staff, and we also have very highly sophisticated machinery like you see up there in a Vector truck. When one of those goes down, it creates incredible havoc to our workload with our construction and maintenance group, because that is a piece of equipment that they cannot do without as they do their construction. So our folks are very good at making sure that all of these fleet is running smoothly and humming along. They also manage the joint fueling facility at our site, partnered with THPRD. Some of the specialty tools are actually fabricated in the back in the shop, and the amount of creativity that we have in our staff is quite astonishing. All of this is done by 2 people, coordinator and a technician. And I know that Tom has had a chance to meet at least one of those 2 people, and I think he would agree that we're very, very lucky to have both of these folks in our staff. Currently, our vehicle age is about 12 years on an average, and that's probably about right, maybe a little bit higher than what we'd like to do. But we do a pretty good job of making sure that we don't have too much of an aging fleet. Our maintenance budget, the fleet budget, is about $1.25 million. Some of the challenges are alternative fuels, and the technology and safety improvements are constantly testing us with the computerized systems coming into the new vehicles. That means we have to keep up with that technology. So we have been, it's really hard to get these guys to actually go to conferences because they're busy working on things, and they see going to conferences as time away from doing the work. But we've been really insistent on both of these folks attending appropriate conferences so that they can make sure they're staying up with the technology as we get them. Diversity of fleet technology, I mentioned, is pretty crazy varying in this district. And the regulatory environment, examples like diesel engines are seeing more and more restrictive standards for about 80 every 4 years. And aging fleet is challenging because when you have to replace a Vector, that takes up a lot of money, and it's not something that we can we save up and we try to spread those expenditures out so that we're not getting hit all at the same time. So what have we got going 2020 and beyond? GIS and CMMS upgrades to bring maps and work orders to field staff on their smart devices. We're trying to move towards smartphones and tablets so that they can do their work more easily in the field. You're going to be seeing some dirt fly within next month. We're doing a lobby upgrade starting in mid-February, and that's going to go on for a couple of months. We think we'll be done towards the end of April. We'll continue to have evening meetings in this room, but the lobby will not be available for customers. If customers are visiting customers will actually be received in this room. So during the daytime, this room will convert to customer services on a temporary basis, and then in the evening, Collins Group will magically wave their wand and bring it back to this state. So we're going to be doing some moving around. The boardroom, audiovisual equipment that you're used to will be upgraded in the coming months. We're issuing an RFP to figure out what exactly we're going to be having here in the district, in the boardroom. We're thinking about going more with wireless use as much as possible. We're trying to bring the 21st century into the boardroom with TVs and other equipment changes to, I'm sure you've been to other cities where all of these equipments are in a cabinet rather than on a cart, and we're trying to move away from having to lay wires every time a board meeting happens around here. So those are some of the things that you'll be seeing, and we'll come back when we have more information about what kind of changes will be happening to the board and let you know. Safety and security upgrades associated with equipment and software for alarm panels, access control system, fire panel, security camera, and CyberLock Phase 2 will be included in the coming year. Tom and I have been talking about doing a facility plan for the headquarter location, this site. So as you know, we own the park property just north of us, and as the district grows and as with the incoming responsibility associated with WWSS, we need to try to figure out how to best use this land that we have here. We're going to need some additional yard space for equipment and other surplus inventory, and so we've been talking about doing a facility plan for this facility so that we can figure out whether we should expand or up or out or just move away or purchase different land or what. So there'll be some more additional discussions coming, and we'll bring that information to you as they become available. Fleet management is also going into 21st century. We're doing some analytic approach to vehicle maintenance and purchases utilizing Fluidio software. That's the name of a software that we're using. We track all of the data or costs associated with maintaining these fleet, and we're hoping to work together with finance to update our FEMA rate associated with our equipment. So those are some highlights of things that we're working on, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or Colin's happy to answer any questions that I misspoke about.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Turning now to Commissioner communications and reports of meetings attended, I will start with Commissioner Sanders.
On the 2nd of the new year, I met with the CEO and the legal counsel to be updated on the meeting that I missed earlier in 2019. On the 7th, I attended the monthly board work session where we got an update on the Willamette Water Supply project and erratics. Do we know what happens with erratics? No? Awesome. Are you going to tell me?
No?
No, we'll wait. Okay. And then on the 15th today, the board meeting where we'll be talking about some really exciting financial and investment information, I'm sure.
I'm sure there's probably cartoons. Commissioner Smith.
I also attended the work session on the 7th of the month, and on the 10th, I attended the Joint Water Commission meeting with treatment plant updates and financials. And then on the 14th, I met with Tom and Bernice to discuss this board agenda for this evening, and then this evening's regular board.
All right, moving along to Commissioner Duggan.
I also attended the work session that we had on the 7th. On the 9th, I attended the Willamette Water System meeting where we met as a local contract review board to approve alternative methods for construction of certain pipeline segments and elements projects. That's where we have approved a different method than the typical low bidder. We're able to consider other factors. We also approved the project agreement between the City of Beaverton and the Willamette Water Supply System Commission for the design of the COB 1.0 pipeline project that's going along in getting certain elements of our Metzger needs met and the City of Beaverton needs being met. And then tonight's meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Doan.
Yes, on the 5th, I attended an open house with Senator Wyden. A couple of big takeaways there. One, he wears Nikes to public meetings, which I thought was unique. And he also emphasized the need for putting funds into infrastructure, not only the water systems, but streets and dams and things like that. I thought it was very well, he was very well received. On the 7th, I attended the work session. On the 9th, I attended the Aloha Business Association. Mostly we talked about the future of Washington County, and it was very interesting. There are approximately 200 homeless students at Aloha High School, and the school's doing its best to try to keep them fed and healthy, even while they're living in cars and things. So I applaud the Beaverton school system for doing that. On last Friday, I attended the Joint Water Commission and the Barney Joint Operating Commission. I've got one of those with the words mixed up. But anyway, and then tonight's regular meeting. The big takeaway from the JWC meeting is that we're running a little bit behind on where we should be as far as filling of the dams go, but maybe the deluge we had today will help that along. But anyway, it was very interesting.
All right, thank you. I was unable to attend the work session on the 7th. However, I did read all of the notes and all of the agenda items. So I'm all caught up on that. On the 10th, I too attended the Barney Reservoir Joint Operating Commission and Joint Water Commission quarterly meeting. We had the audits, we had updates on the treatment plant, we had reports on the atmospheric river and how maintenance dealt with that. It was really exciting. On the 14th, I met with the CEO and with Commissioner Schmidt to do agenda planning. And on the 15th, of course, tonight's board meeting. So the next item on our agenda is topics to be raised by commissioners. Do we have any? I have one myself. I would like at some future point at a work session preferably to revisit the idea of paperless agendas for board members instead of getting agenda packets. That's another thing that came up at the Joint Water Commission. And we've done it in the past with not huge success, but I'd like to have a chat about it at some point. A work session item.
We can put that on the next work session agenda.
Cool. Right, moving to public comment. Public comment time is set aside for persons wishing to address the board on items on the consent agenda and matters not on the regular agenda. Additional public comment will be invited on regular agenda items as they're presented. Do we have anybody who would like to comment? Okay, getting a head shake. Moving to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action, and any items requested to be removed for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved the items which do not require separate discussion. We have 4 items on the consent agenda tonight. The first is to approve the December 18th, 2019 regular meeting minutes. The second is to approve the January 7th, 2020 work session meetings. The third is to adopt Resolution 01-20, which is a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between Washington County and Tualatin Valley Water District for construction of water line work on Southwest TV Highway from Southwest 211th Avenue to Southwest 209th. Lastly, we would like to adopt Resolution 02-20, which is a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between Washington County and Tualatin Valley Water District for construction of water line work on Northwest Cornell Road from Northwest 102nd Avenue to Northwest 113th Avenue. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Business agenda items. The first one on the list is to consider adopting Resolution 03-20, which is a resolution adopting the investment policy for the Tualatin Valley Water District. Staff report and cartoons, I'm sure, by CFO Paul Matthews.
Thank you, President Bagnall. Good evening, Commissioners. I have a dream that one of these days our investment policy will end up in the consent agenda and I will remain seated over there for a year. But tonight I am going to talk about the investment policy. Sorry to disappoint, we will not have any cartoons, but we will have some interesting graphics. So we'll work on them. Tonight's presentation, just a few things. First of all, the district has to adopt its investment policy annually, and I'll get more detail why, but it allows us to invest in securities with a duration of more than 18 months, which is important for our business needs. It's required by Oregon law. Of course, we want to stay on the right side of wrongs. We always follow the ORSs. We also work with our investment advisors to make sure that our policy is consistent with sound technical principles. Talk about our investment objectives, authorized investments, and the requirements for a diversified portfolio. So what you see here are our guiding principles. And as we put together our investment policy, these are the things that animate sort of what we're trying to achieve. First of all, we want to limit risk. We do want to stay legal. We want to get a return both of our money as well as a return on our money, liquidity and safety. And as we look at this, the real important aspects for us is liquidity, safety, and risk. Those are the most important things. We want to make sure, well, obviously legality is too, sorry, Clark. But we really want to make sure by liquidity, that means we can get the money when we need it so we can fund the capital program that Dave and Carrie are providing the district. So it's really important that we keep an eye on that. We do want to balance risk and return. One of the challenges that everybody is facing right now are interest rate risks. And we've talked about this before, but when we talk about interest rate risk, what we're saying is that when interest rates go up, the value of your existing securities that you hold actually go down. And so what you'll see is when interest rates are rising, you'll see your portfolio value on a market basis going down. That doesn't mean we've lost money, but the way that we calculate it and present it, it sure looks like we've lost money. We call that an unrealized gain or loss. Interest rates have been coming down, so we look really smart right now because our values are going up higher than market. But what comes down will eventually go back up and we'll be caught in the other side of this. We've stayed relatively short in the market, and we're doing that primarily for two reasons. One, the interest rate environment is a little uncertain right now, but more importantly, it's the liquidity. We want to make sure that we don't have to sell securities early in order to provide the money that we need for capital projects. We generally hold our securities for the duration, so that means looking at that market valuation that I'm talking about isn't material to us because when these securities reach their maturity, we're going to get back the investment that we have in them. We also focus on benchmarks. It's very easy to be trying to follow the market. And within our organization, we're not a hedge fund, we're a water district, and we use our professional investment advisors to help us establish these benchmarks. And by following those benchmarks, we get to achieve our objectives with less risk. I wanted to show a copy of current or recent yield curves, and you've probably seen this on the news. We're in what's called an inverted yield curve, which typically precedes a recession. Well, we haven't seen a recession, but we have seen a dip in the yield curve. So what you see here, this red line, is what we call the yield curve that we see now. It's inverted because typically what you see is the shorter the duration, this is the duration measured in years, so this would be a 5-year security, this would be the interest rate associated with 5-year security. Well, an interest rate associated with a 3-month security is higher than it is for 5-year security. That's atypical. That's what we call an inverted yield curve. A more common approach is that as you go out in duration, the yields go up. In an environment that's more typical, you might see people trying to get higher returns. They start chasing the curve by going out longer in duration. And then when interest rates move, they can be caught a little off guard. We're in an environment right now where interest rates out in this area where we're buying them are likely to go up. So we're being very selective in the kinds of investments that we hold, and we're trying to keep our benchmark right there at, we're trying to keep our duration for our portfolio where the benchmark is. If you look at our reports right now, we're actually achieving returns that are higher. And that's because even though the yield curve was looking like this for quite some time, we were buying securities that were lower, going a little bit longer in the market, but as those have come forward and interest rates have gone down, we've been protected. So we'll continue that practice. It's a little counterintuitive, but it's important for our investment strategy. So the policy itself, we do this each year, and what's changed? Just a few things. First, our investment advisor looks through those, and they compare it to what the Oregon Short-Term Funds Board has as their sample policy. And believe it or not, every year they kind of tweak things, and we keep up with that, with those tweaks. So we have a few of those tweaks, minor alignments to the sample policy, and a few other minor formatting changes. There is one thing that we did add after we sent out the packet to the board, and that's in the investment policy, we added Fitch. We did add Fitch as a national rating, as a, what they call a nationally recognized statistical rating organization. Fitch is just like Moody's and S&P. They rate the quality of credits. We added them as one of the credit rating agencies that we can use to judge a security. We added it to one part of the investment policy, but we didn't add it to the other part when it went out in the board packet. So here's what we've added right here. An authorized investments where it refers to the policy recognizes S&P, Moody's, and Fitch ratings as the major nationally recognized statistical rating organizations. Why do we do that? Well, one is we use Fitch for our WIFI loan. We thought it was worthwhile to add them to the mix. So that's otherwise the only change of substance. So from staff's perspective, our finding is the proposed resolution 0320 complies with Oregon law. It follows the Oregon Short-Term Fund Board guidelines. It incorporates changes that are recommended by our investment advisors. So staff recommends adoption of resolution 0320, a resolution adopting investment policy for the Tualatin Valley Water District. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
No questions, Todd? All right. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 03-20, a resolution adopting the investment policy for the Tualatin Valley Water District?
I move that we adopt Resolution 0320, adopting our investment policy revised for the new year.
And I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Moving to our next business item, consider adopting Resolution 04-20, a resolution amending system development charges for the Tualatin Valley Water District and declaring an effective date. CFO Matthews.
Good evening again, President Bagnall, Commissioners. Another piece of housekeeping that we do. Typically in February, we come to the board with an adjustment or SDCs that are based on the change in the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index for Seattle. We do that on a December to December basis, but in looking at the agenda for February and the agenda for tonight's meeting, we thought we would bring it here tonight as opposed to wait until February since the numbers were available to us. I'll go through this very quickly and pause. Please interrupt me if you have any questions. This is material you've seen before, so I'm not sure we need to spend a whole lot of time on it. I'll talk a little bit about the process that we use for adjusting the SDCs, the history of the adjustments, and show, again, another fascinating line graph. And I'll show a comparison to other communities as well as comparison to other SDCs that are out there in the market. So first, the method of adoption. Our SDCs are based on Ordinance 0112, an ordinance that enacted our SDCs. It was adopted by the board back in August of 2012. It requires the district to review its SDCs annually and to make that adjustment based on the construction cost index as published by the Engineers News Record, and that ordinance complies with Oregon law. Looking at the construction cost index, again, December to December, we look on an annual basis, it went up by 4.98% this year. It fluctuates quite a bit from year to year. It's a little bit more volatile than what the CPI is. If we look over time, though, this is the fascinating line graph I had foreshadowed in my comments. What we see here, the red dotted line is the trend between March 2012 and March 2020, or SDCs. And although we see it at 4.98%, which is a little bit higher, last year was a little bit lower, and you can see this line's a little flatter. But over the long run, we're seeing that inflation trend basically being very, very consistent. We did contact the Home Builders Association to let them know that this was coming, so they could let their members know. We completed that task as well. So what are the outcomes? Presented here are the SDCs existing and proposed based on this 4.98% increase in the ENR. And I'll let you see the numbers, but basically for a typical single-family home, it would be about, for a new connection, be $369. Of course, all the money that, all the revenue from the SDCs are sequestered and used only for capital projects consistent with Oregon law. None of it's used to fund any operations. For our meters that are larger than 1.5 inches, we have a formula. We call it a large user exception that calculates the SDC for them. It's based on their peak day demand as well as the storage charge, which is based on their average day demand. And these would, again, go up consistent with ENR 4.98%. Presented here is a comparison to other communities. The light blue bars are TVWD's current and the proposed. And you can see we're kind of in the middle of the pack. There are those that are a little bit higher than us and those that are a little bit lower. And this is based on the capital plans that the various agencies have adopted over time. If we compare it to other SDCs for other services in the area, you can see we've presented waters compared to sewer, stormwater management, transportation, as well as parks and rec. You can see that here presented as a pie graph is the amount that the SDC would represent for a water customer. So with that, staff recommends the board adopt resolution 0420, a resolution amending the system development charge for the Tualatin Valley Water District and declaring the effective date, which by the way would be March 1st of 2020. With that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from the board? In that case, do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 04-20, resolution amending system development charges for the Tualatin Valley Water District and declaring an effective date?
I move that we approve Resolution 0420 as presented by staff.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
With no opposed, I'm assuming the motion passes. And there being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned.
Oh, by the way, Carrie, in your presentation tonight, there was that one photo of 7 people in it when you said there were 8. And that reminded me of when I was young, my family always insisted that I take the family photo. And I figured out it's because I wouldn't be in it that way.
Actually, I took the picture. Mark just wasn't there this morning.